Here we are live on YouTube in State Control Britain, and I'm not in England tonight. I am in North Wales, the land that Richard is the king of, I think, actually. He said, hello, health seekers in the comments, and he is the world's top nutritionist. Hello, Richard.
Good day, Stephen. How are you doing, kind sir?
I'm doing okay. Like I say, I'm away from home and actually revisiting where Jane was brought up and stuff like that. So trip down memory lane. Just to remind people, if they want to ask a question, just put it in the chat with a Q in front of it and we will answer. It's a bit quiet at the moment, so get your questions in really quickly. Richard's doing a dress down Sunday today, and I'm doing a what's the word? What's the word where you wear your own clothes? Oh, it's an unclothed Sunday here in North Wales. So, did you watch that Robert Cywis video, by the way?
No, look, I don't watch other people's content. Not because I'm busy. I've got a business to run. I'm researching my own stuff. People ask me constantly, have you seen this video? No, I don't really care. They talk crap most of the time, and then so it's. I know you said that there is a reason to watch this to try to nip it in the bud and rebuttal. But the thing is, we always get these comments. Every couple of weeks, there's an influx of crap that is posted on social media, and you feel like you need to jump to it and justify it. Look, I'm 12 years carnivore or keto. I'm the fittest and healthiest I've ever been. I do not eat carbs. I do not eat vegetables. I do not eat seed oils. I'm getting fitter and healthier the older I get. What more proof do you need? I don't know what else we can do. Do you need me to live to 150 and then say told you so? I don't know. These idiots are posting these ridiculous comments. And to be honest, it's beginning to really pee me right off. But yeah, sometimes I feel like I just need to remove myself from the bollocks going on social because it is just that, isn't it? It's like a rubbish.
Well, yeah, and it's a 24-minute video. And at the end, he said, these are facts. These are from ChatGPT. And I just did the face you just did. It's like, really? And the weird thing is, Rich, if you take every assertion he makes and you ask it, if you ask ChatGPT, and that's what I did, is there any truth in this, that humans make only 20% of their required insulin from amino acids if they're eating a carnivore diet? And immediately said, no, that's not true. So you could take everything he asserted and say, okay, ChatGPT is fed rubbish, and we know, don't we? Because we've done that live. We have done that live.
We've done it live, and anyone who ChatGPT is a fantastic tool. I find it useful for researching, but you need to know how to ask the correct questions.
That's it, yes.
And I think that's the key. It's fantastic for finding papers, and I use it for that purpose. I don't ask it questions for specific answers because it will bend to the question that you ask. And we've proven this when we asked about the sugar-made pathway. And yes. you guys can go off and do this now. I asked ChatGPT if humans have the sugar-made pathway, and it clearly said no. Its answer was no, the sugar-made pathway does not exist in the human body. And we went back with, you're wrong. The sugar-made pathway exists in the bacteria in our gut. And it came back and said, wow, you are completely correct. So it's, yeah, that's what we're up against.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the things that I want to say to people is I will do a video about it, because you are right. But this ridiculous theory he has about insulin suppression, which is absolute nonsense. Well, it's literally that is absolute nonsense. And I'll do a proper video on it. But we have lower levels of insulin because we have lower levels of carbohydrate. Simple as that. And if you have less carbohydrate, you need less insulin. He talks about GLP-1, which is an incretin hormone, and GIP. Oh, the other thing is that I found very frustrating is he's not looking at the camera; he's just reading it from some document that he's printed. Whereas we just talk from the heart. It's clear that he doesn't really know it. So you get incretin hormones. So how we know these hormones are effective on insulin is you can give someone a certain amount of glucose and you can take their blood glucose. So they ingest it and you can look at their blood glucose, and you can also measure their insulin. If you infuse glucose directly into the bloodstream, you don't get the same insulin effect. So it proves that when you eat glucose, the small intestine has an effect compared to just glucose in the blood. So we know that, and it's about a 10 times effect. Now, you don't need a big incretin hormone response if you're not eating carbohydrates. In the middle of the speech, he says something like, if you've been carnivore a long time and then you dump a load of carbohydrates into your body, you eat a load of carbs, your GLP-1 response is going to be shot. That's not even true. That's not true. People do that. I did it. I did my continual glucose monitor experiment, and I still produced insulin because my blood glucose went up, came down, and that would have been the incretin hormones, GLP-1 and GIP, which is a more intestinal one. Anyway, shall we get to the questions? And I just promise everybody I will go through that video point by point, and you will laugh. You will absolutely not believe how rubbish it is. So you all right, Richard, to do that?
Yeah, all good.
Typing away. I detect a little bit of mega typing going on. Carnivore Muscle, good to see you, mate. Are either of you chaps coming to my party on June the 29th? I doubt it. Firstly, I don't think I've got an invite. Secondly, I don't know where it is. And thirdly, I know nothing. What about you, Richard?
Well, I'm guessing that was an invite. Yeah, I mean, I'm up for providing I've got nothing on. I've made a note. Yeah, I've made a note in my diary actually that it's Jonathan's birthday party. So providing nothing else pops up, I can't see why not.
Is it a birthday party? Do we know it's a birthday party?
It is a birthday party.
All right. Okay. Well, I'll get back to you. Actually, I don't know what I'm doing on June the 29th. So far lap in it. What? We're in Dorset, apparently. Right. Okay. That was my producer there. Right. Morning, men. Good morning. That's good. Do I need to put salt in my water every day? Cheers.
Do you need it is the question, isn't it? Look, so one of the reasons that everyone requires sodium without question. It's essential for life. Amongst the other electrolytes that we need, sodium in particular is incredibly important. The reason it's important when we gravitate into a low-carb ketogenic way of living is that insulin drops almost immediately, and it's insulin that pulls sodium back into the bloodstream from 4 points in the nephrons in the kidney, and this is what leads to high blood pressure. So anyone who suffers with essential hypertension or high blood pressure, this is caused by insulin. So you don't need to take blood pressure tablets. You just need to correct your insulin resistance. You need to reduce or remove carbohydrates, because all carbohydrates break down into sugar. Sugar requires insulin. Over a process of 10 to 15 years, you can become what we call in class as insulin resistance. And this will lead to high blood pressure. So everything that we see in modern illness and disease are connected. The simple rule to this is reduce or remove carbohydrates and seed oils. Interesting talk at the PHC that we had with my goodness, who was it, Steve? Dr. Westman and Chris Kenobi, which is responsible for insulin resistance. And that was incredibly good. Look, they're both contributing factors. I think the biggest lever that you're going to pull to reverse insulin resistance is probably reducing the sugar, although seed oils do have an impact on damaging the liver and causing insulin resistance. But we do need salt. So the reason that many of us gravitating into this way of living consume salt is to correct this. Otherwise, it will lead to what we call keto flu. This is a stage in which we feel very fatigued, nauseous, just a whole sense of unwell-being, if you like, and salt can correct this. Some people need to add lots of salt, some people little, some people need to add it for a long time, some people just need to add it for a short spell while they adapt. But it is essential. Now, we do obtain it from the diet. I no longer salt my meals. I say I no longer. I tend to do it to taste. Do you need to put salt water in every day? How are you feeling? You know, if you're feeling a little sluggish, then that could be a quick fix. And that's why I use the electrolytes that I manufacture, because they contain every electrolyte that you need, along with some other added benefits. But it's what I'd say is, how do you feel? If you're feeling lethargic, if you find it difficult to concentrate, you know, and you feel better when you drink some salt water, then you are probably still salt or sodium deficient. So I would continue to do that. If you are using salt, my preference would be a Celtic sea salt. I use a brand that is stocked and supplied to me by the Real Food Company. That's available online. You can buy direct in kilo packs from them. That's what I use. If I do use salt, I've moved away from pink Himalayan because pink Himalayan is not organic and Celtic sea salt is organic.
That's excellent. Yeah, I'm a big fan of a little bit of salt in water, maybe a quarter teaspoon in a small amount of water like this. If you've got a headache and you haven't got anything else handy, it's a quick fix. Within 20 minutes, a lot of people see the headaches go. So I think, yeah, but Richard is the man when it comes to electrolytes. He is the expert. I'm just trying to catch up on where we are, because I'm on a little monitor rather than having 3 screens, which normally helps me. I can't pick up messages from places like Facebook at the moment, or X, so I do apologize for that. But I'm actually supposed to be having the weekend away, but as Richard did last week, he was driving from somewhere. You know, now I'm away, but we always put you first here at YouTube. And don't forget, we'll be doing our school group at 8 o'clock. So anyway, I can't agree more with you, Kayla. I feel you on that. I can't be bothered wasting my time listening to people like that. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to just sit quoting what you've printed off of ChatGPT, really, there's no hope for you. Seriously, there is no hope. You've got to understand the mechanisms. He doesn't understand the HbA1c is very unreliable. He doesn't really sort of understand bloods at all, normative ranges. He doesn't understand that if you need a certain amount of insulin when you're on a low carb diet, that isn't insulin suppression. That's the body working out how much insulin you need. But anyway, I will do a full video on that. Yes, it's got under my skin a little bit, and a few other people as well. Right. Anyway, Milk Man, in your opinion, what is the healthiest blood pressure range for adults? Thank you both so much. Well, I think when you're looking at blood pressure, and I was talking about this in Dr. Chafee's Patreon group, and couldn't remember off the top of my head, but what's happened, blood pressure levels used to be age-related and everything was hunky-dory, but they weren't selling enough blood pressure medications. And there's a panel that meets maybe every 4 or 5 years, and they set the standards, and they lowered it and lowered it and lowered it. And, you know, 120 over 80 is ideal for a male athlete. 120 over 80 is not really great for me at 61. That's not very relevant. Age-related blood pressure is better. The easiest way to think of it is your age plus 100 for the systolic. So I'm 61, so 161 would be my top number, and take 40 off of that because that's the pulse pressure. The difference between your systolic and diastolic. So mine would be 161 over 121. But, you know, that's really rule of thumb. I'm not overly bothered. Actually, that isn't my blood pressure, because when you are metabolically healthy, it can be much lower than that. I think mine is actually about 117 over, I think it's 70 something. So I think your blood pressure, you need to look at every factor really, and not worry about trying to get to 120 over 80. Obviously, it seems to be that the lower is better, but it is a response. Blood pressure goes up, for instance, if your heart rate goes down, because the amount of volume that's coming out, you need a certain amount of nutrients to get to your cells and to get around your body. So it's all actually about blood volume. What is the volume? So you could have quite low blood pressure and quite a high heart rate. So when I was in my teens, and this is another thing about ChatGPT, you see, my heart rate was 45. Theoretically, that's actually quite low and not very good, unless you're an athlete. So there's always context. So I would look up age-related blood pressure if I was you. The point I was making about the panel sitting and basically lowering every single time, lowering the recommended level. They got to 120/80, and then they went even lower, and they went to 115/75, and a lot of people were becoming dizzy and fainting because that's too low for a lot of people, especially the older generation. And the next time they met, they raised it back up to 120/80, and they did put in the documents, this is nothing to do with the anecdotes about people being having too low a blood pressure and collapsing and being dizzy. So if they put that in the document, I can guarantee that's why they did it, because it was actually too low. So yeah, being too low is not very good either. So that's my 2 pence, but I'm sure Richard's got something to add.
I think you've nailed it.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, that's very kind of you. Okay. Jennifer, she's a big supporter. Just saw in review, Taurine may execute cancer in leukemia patients. Any idea why that could be?
Taurine inhibits a pathway called nuclear factor kappa B, NFKB, which leads to inflammation and can fuel cancer cells. So taurine basically increases apoptosis, the death of the cancer cell, reduces inflammation, and it does so by inhibiting that pathway. Simple as that. Now, interestingly, if we go back a couple of steps, what activates NFKB? Well, environmental toxins such as exhaust fumes and tobacco smoke and arsenic and all of these sorts of nasties. And it does so by the overexpression of another pathway called NRF2, nuclear factor erythroid 2 related factor 2, for those geeks out there. So lead, mercury, arsenic, tobacco smoke, all of these compounds, cyanide can elicit NRF2, which will lead to the activation of NFKB, and then we're in trouble. Guess what else activates NRF2? Broccoli, spinach, kale, vegetables basically, which are meant to be antioxidants, are in fact pro-oxidants. And you can find this quite simply. Vegetables are not antioxidants. Antioxidants do not exist in vegetables. They elicit a pro-oxidant response, which elicits a response of glutathione, the body's master antioxidant. And this is what we see, is this elevation of glutathione. We register this as an antioxidant effect because glutathione is the master antioxidant, but it's elevated via NRF2 to bind to a toxin through glucuronidation and remove it from the body. But it's a pro-oxidant effect that elicits this response. So plants and wine and all of this rubbish that you see about these polyphenols being beneficial, they are toxins to the body and they are pro-oxidants. They elicit the NRF2 pathway, which activates NFKB, which can lead to cancer and DNA damage. And again, that's a simple one you can research. Broccoli damages DNA via a process called clastogenesis because of the isothiocyanates which are found within. So that's the mechanism. It blocks NFKB.
Brilliant, Richard. Font of brilliant information, which is why we're on. Right, let's have a look. Oh, a super chat. This is very kind. Super chats get you ahead of the queue with questions, or you can just support the channel. And Run for Remy is doing just that, supporting the channel. $19.99. Thank you very much. And Remy is saying, or Run for Remy is saying, thanks for your efforts to promote this way of eating. 30 pounds lost since March, which is excellent. Running suffered initially, but back on track. No question. Just passing in my thanks to you both. That's really appreciated. I think we don't realise how it's great, isn't it? I think people don't realise how much it does help the channel. It really does. So does liking, so does subscribing, and so does sharing. By the way, if you've not liked, shared, or subscribed to Kent Carnivore's channel, I think he would always appreciate that. Spoke to him yesterday and he was saying that he thinks most people that watch this know about his channel. I would disagree. So if you haven't checked out Lee Copus, Lee Copus, Copus, the Kent Carnivore, I'd definitely check that out because it's a good channel. And we got from that.
And Carnivore Muscle also, who's on the live tonight.
Yes, Carnivore Muscle. Yeah, yep, absolutely. Check that out as well. Vas Scotia has done a $4.99 sticker there. That's brilliant. Right, let's have a look at the next question. So the super chats have gone to my head. All that money. Brilliant. Right. We've done the Taurine question. Okay, this is an interesting one from Sandeep. Guys, Dave Asprey coming out with nicotine is good for a mental boost and it's not the demon we think it is. Any thoughts? Well, yes. I mean, one of the things we know about nicotine is, for some people, it can improve your mood and your concentration short term. And it does obviously have a neurotransmitter release function, because that's why some people get pleasure out of nicotine. It's not something I would recommend, but I'm really keen to hear what Richard says, actually.
Does it elicit an activation of NRF2 is the question, and yes, it does. So it's something I won't be consuming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that because when we talk about broccoli, you talk about the certain things that elicit the NRF2 pathway. Nicotine, I think, cyanide. Can't remember the other two. But anyway, that's why I said I'm sure you're going to put something in there. But that's the thing, you see. You've got to be open to new ideas so you can question them with an open mind as well. And as long as you do.
The thing with this is I'm not against medication, and I think lots of these things can be used for medicinal purposes, but you always need to take a step back and ask yourself, would you take medication on a daily basis, or should you take medication on a daily basis? And to be honest, my personal opinion is we shouldn't have to. We've survived millions of years as a species without medication, at least ongoing. Yes, we would have consumed some plants for medicinal purposes, but we know from nitrogen isotope testing that we're predominantly carnivore. Animal-based, our diets contained predominantly animal fats and animal proteins with very little carbohydrate and very little plant compounds apart from medicinal purposes. So medication is important. Plants are important for medicinal purposes. And this is why when we see people who take turmeric, for example, when they have a little bit of inflammation, they see a resolution. And it's because turmeric activates this pathway, NRF2, and we see this elevation of glutathione and all of the other downstream positive effects which can happen in the short term. And that's fine. But what happens when we haven't addressed the root cause and we continue to carry on our journey and the pain starts to come back? Well, now we start to take more turmeric and then it dampens it again, and then we take more and more and more. And before we know it, now we're consuming lots and lots of oxalates, causing much havoc within the body. We're overexpressing this NRF2 pathway, and now it's led to NFKB. So medication in the short term, beneficial. Lots of these compounds that we see within clinical trials and research papers confer benefits. But what are we comparing it to? Quite often we're testing something on a sick person. If we test something on a sick person, lots of things can have a positive result. It's what is the effect on someone who is healthy? If you are well onto your journey, and I think that is probably the majority of people within this community, we've been consuming less carb, less seed oils for many, many years, or at least a few weeks to a few months. We've seen a huge resolution in lots of these issues that we suffered with all of our life. And then we start to look at this biohacking bollocks, and we start to put in all of these plant compounds. Well, we don't need them. We've already fixed everything. Ketones are the key ketones are the magic elixir. These elicit all of the responses, and they activate and elicit a glutathione response without activating NRF2. You don't need to consume all of this other rubbish that these biohackers and other people are telling you to consume, like bloody methylene blue and all of this rubbish. They can be beneficial if you are sick, but are you sick is the question, and I think we need to take a step back and ask ourselves that question. What are we trying to achieve? We don't need to take endless amounts of supplements if we live in a low carb, seed oil, grain-free lifestyle. I do believe that we can thrive without these medications.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And if you heard a doot doot, by the way, where we're staying is right next to a steam train place. So yeah, so basically I've been at the window with binoculars spotting trains all day. Actually, I saw the RF2 pathway one the other day. Actually, anyway, right. Let's get to the next question. This nice simple one here from Gaynor, which is, can carnivore help lupus? I had Craig Emmerich on my channel about a year ago, obviously one of the more sort of well-known influencers who also is really big into lupus. And therefore he has a lot of people contact him. And he was saying that you know, the possibility to reduce inflammation is there. That's what this diet is really simply doing. And also you're removing all the lectins and oxalates and all the plant toxins, so you are giving your body the best possible chance. One of the things I think which is underrated is there's less variability in your blood glucose as well, so we're not seeing big excursions up and down, which seems to have a really good effect on, or reducing effect on, symptoms of lupus. So there's not much scientific evidence, but it's not something that's going to be studied much because there's no money in it. But that's true of most conditions. So you won't find many trials on lupus and a carnivore diet, or even keto, low carb. But I could be wrong. I'll hand over to Richard, who might know a bit more about it.
Yeah, well, it's autoimmune, isn't it? It's an autoimmune issue. You know, if the root cause of autoimmune is intestinal permeability. Healing the gut is job number one when it comes to healing and repairing. Somebody messaged me on Instagram last night about a lifetime of acne. Now, as a sufferer myself, it's such a simple fix because healthy skin begins from within. Once we've healed the gut, everything else begins to heal up. And when we understand what causes this damage to the gut, it's incredibly easy to fix. Now, there are a number of things that will cause this damage. Wheat germ agglutinin, which is found in wheat products, grains, bread, pastas, rice, even in gluten-free. So even in gluten-free products.
Richard, you're frozen, I think. Richard, Earth to Richard. Can anyone in the chat confirm that Richard is frozen, not just for me, but for everybody? I think he has frozen, but I'm not sure. While we're checking that out, I will put the super chats up. Karen has done a £5 super chat, and also Emma, a super sticker of $4.99. So we're going to get Richard back on the stage, and we'll get rid of the frozen Richard. So let's kick him out of the studio. Kick the guest.
Where did you lose me?
I can't off the top of my head tell you. About a minute ago.
Okay, so that's strange. My whole Chrome browser just shut down when I was in full swing of talking about how damaging lectins are. The powers that be at their work again, probably. Yes. So I don't know how much you heard, but look, wheat germ agglutinin, bread, pasta, rice, cereal, detrimental, and in my opinion, probably one of the main, if not the top cause and contributor of the release of a molecule called zonulin, which causes a gap to appear in the tight junction between the epithelial cells. This is fundamentally, this is leaky gut, which leads to autoimmune. Other contributing factors, alcohol, medication, seed oils, all damage the gut. To a lesser extent, milk, casein in milk or dairy products specifically can cause problems, but it does seem to be less of a problem once we've healed the gut. But wheat germ agglutinin and the seed oils, if you can remove them, then those are the two biggest levers, in my opinion, that you can pull in order to heal the gut. When you do this, your skin clears up. Now, there is another contributing factor potentially to bad skin, acne, and that is increased cortisol or damage to the HPA axis. So it could be elevated cortisol, or it could be low cortisol, as in lack of production. So it may be worth, if you do suffer with, and I've gone off on a tangent now, am I talking about bad skin, but Testing for cortisol with the saliva test is also recommended. I think everybody should do that regularly anyway, just to see where the cortisol, where the diurnal rhythm is. But look, lupus, autoimmune, remove all of the compounds that are causing issues to your gut, and that's going to put you in the best stead, I think. And carnivore is the ultimate elimination diet, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes. And if you're thinking, wow, we're getting through a lot of questions, they're not going to get through them all. That really happens. We do try to get through every single question. That's why we started the school community, and we do an extra half an hour on a Sunday, maybe an hour sometimes, depending on how many questions we get. We also do a live on a Monday night. And if you don't know what I mean by a school community, I'm just going to share my screen. This is what it looks like. And basically on the screen, you will see that we have questions from members there, and you just post your question and we talk. And also you get other members giving you some support as well. There is a classroom where you can see all your courses, and the more active you are in the school community, the more courses open up to you. So you've got the free keto courses start you off, and then there is the tips to go in carnivore, 19 tips, videos, and PDFs. Then we have things about thyroid, which has free ebooks. It also has some great, summaries of big videos we know about. For instance, Ken Berry did one with an expert, Dr. not Brownstein, but anyway, so, loads of stuff for the thyroid. Level 4 is all about dairy, all about fruit and veg. Level 5 is really good because we've got all the PDFs from the actual growers of fruit and veg and all the things they get up to, so we can prove that if an apple is picked, about a year later, it appears on the shelf in the supermarket. Absolutely. You think it's fresh fruit and veg? It isn't. So we get that from the food growers, which has to be public domain information. So we can tell you all about that. Pears, 8 months in storage before they're released to the public. It's not fruit and veg that's fresh. They also talk about how any nutrients that are in there are actually diminished within weeks. So we also got the protein section, which has got free ebooks in as well, problem solving. And then when you get to level 8, you get my book, How to Be Carnivore, completely free, which is just as a thank you for being a member. And then also you've got the Fat Club, which is a long course, which is an extra payment. But basically, you'll be able to follow Richard and myself for over 60 days, where we give you lots and lots of backup and help for you to get where you want to be. So if you want to join school, there's a link in the chat, and you can join. And at 8 o'clock tonight, you can join in for our more intimate little meeting. There's about 40 people tend to join on a Sunday, and on a Monday about 40, so that you get a lot more attention, right? And it's well worth doing. We have so many members now and they love it, so get in while the price is fixed at where it is. So let's get into the next question, and that is from Cami. Cami is a big supporter. I think she's also a member of school, actually, so that's nice to see you again, Cami. Let me just get the question and put it up on the screen. Interesting one. Is insulin resistance connected to male pattern baldness? Now, of course, insulin it has a huge effect, doesn't it, on the hair follicles, if I remember rightly. So, yeah, Richard, obviously, what do you know about it?
Yeah, well, it increases androgens, doesn't it? Which, as you say, have an effect on the follicles. It will damage the production and size, which can lead to male pattern baldness. So, yeah, insulin resistance, root cause of almost everything.
Yeah, I want to touch on genetics, by the way, because I did 23andMe, and my data told me that I would not be able to cope very well on red meat, and gave me a huge indicator that I should be bald by now. And I'm 61. That's not a syrup of fig. It's definitely my real hair. It is a little bit grey around the edges. So don't worry about genetics so much. Don't worry about people telling you stuff that you can possibly help with nutrition. Right. Okay. Here is one that is right up Richard Street. Any supplements you'd recommend whilst trying to heal forearm tendonitis? I'm 54, 1 year, 0 carb, beef, eggs, cheese, sardines, butter, and bone broth.
Yeah, fantastic. In regards to additions to the types of things, you could put lamb in. lamb is very high in omega-3s. Obviously, you've got the sardines, which are high also, but lamb also contains a very good amino profile as well as B vitamin profile. Supplements, what would I use? I mean, I use the exogenous ketones and C8 MCT because the ketone production helps block inflammation and by blocking a pathway called NLRP3. That can help with the inflammation side of tendonitis. Just make sure that you're consuming highly nutrient-dense animal proteins and natural fats, which is exactly what you're doing. More importantly, avoid the compounds that contain lectins and phytic acid, because lectins and phytic acid will reduce the absorption of many other nutrients. And this is the mistake I think many people make when they want to live a whole food diet. They will consume compounds such as breads, pastas, rice, along with, or potatoes, so on and so forth, along with highly nutrient-dense animal proteins, and they believe that they are doing well because they consume the highly nutrient-dense animal proteins. But what's happening when you consume these compounds that are high in lectins and phytic acids, you're actually preventing the absorption through a number of means. The lectins will bind to the epithelial cells on the enterocytes lining the gut, on the microvilli. So in the gut, we have microvilli. Think of them like little fingers. And this is how we absorb nutrients. So the nutrients come in, they bind to the microvilli, and this is how we absorb all the nutrients. But when the lectins come in, the lectins bind and they take up the surface area, causing this. So now the surface area that we have to absorb the nutrients is massively reduced. So removing the lectins is key to this. And also when you remove the phytic acid also blocks the absorption of things like zinc, iron, magnesium by as much as 100%. And these are crucial cofactors for many processes within the body. So, and fiber is an anti-nutrient, by the way. So I think you're doing everything right there. I can't remember the name, apologies, because you popped another one up, but you're eating the right foods. Maybe put some lamb in. Not a sales pitch, but personally, I would be consuming the exogenous ketones and C8 just to help along with that inflammation. But I think you're doing everything right. I think you're pulling levers.
Yeah, sorry about that, Richard. I wanted, because as you were speaking, there's people appreciating what you're doing. John Lewis there, not John Lewis the shop, by the way, John Lewis the person. Keto Pro is unbelievably great. Postage sorted. I think you know what that is. So
and John Lewis looks incredible shape also. I can see the abs ripped in the picture, so clearly doing something right. Yet this way of living is meant to be unhealthy.
Yeah, I know. It's rather annoying, isn't it?
How fit is Cy West, by the way?
Sorry?
How fit is Cy West, by the way?
Well, if you look at that video, I tell you what, it's so hypocritical, because he says, what real carnivores do and what's the appropriate diet. And then he talks about the endogenous ketones he's taking to help him with his training. And you're like, well, okay, if you're going to go down a route of saying we've got to be exactly like animals, well, they don't have any supplements. So you can't have it both ways. So admit we're humans. The thing that bothers me is he keeps talking about different animals. He cherry picks what animals he's talking about. And of course, humans are completely different. We have brains. We use computers. The last time I spoke to a cow, I don't remember that they were on My Fitness Pal saying, "Oh, this grass is a little bit samey. I need to eat the rainbow." It doesn't happen. So he's an idiot. Sorry, I'm going to be quite blunt. Right, let's get into the next thing, which is VAX. This is an interesting question, and I'm going to let you answer it, Richard, because you're on a roll. There's a few people commenting. Hi, guys, because I know you made some apple cider vinegar as part of what you did once. I made some bone broth with apple cider vinegar, and some very small bones would just crumble in my mouth. Are they okay to digest?
100%. Look, if you can eat the soft bones, fantastic, highly nutrient dense. From an evolutionary perspective, we would have consumed the bone marrow, the connective tissue. We would have eaten the soft bones. We would have eaten the knuckles on the bones. I do all of these things. If I'm eating chicken, for example, which I tend to consume maybe once a week, once every 10 days. I do enjoy chicken. I eat the soft bones, the tissue, and the knuckles. Incredibly nutrient dense. The apple cider vinegar, you're right, I used to produce it. I used to believe that it conferred benefits. I'm not against it. I still think it's an addition. I'm not against apple cider vinegar. And for taste, the question is it going to cause any problems? And I don't think so. So if it's going to add taste, then fantastic to that. But the small bones, yes, for sure, consume the small bones. And I think, yeah, we're both having a bit of a rant today, aren't we? So
Yes. Right, let's
never mind.
a super chat of 15. I can't read what that currency is, but anyway, Amit Koren. Okay. Hi, do you think it matters how long after exercise I should eat, and what do you think about sprints at max intensity as an exercise? Well, sprints at max intensity as an exercise is great, depending on what your goals are. But I think in general, being really broad, it's a great thing to do at any age. And I think Richard and I are going to be on the same page. I'll give my little 2 pence, and then Richard can, because he's really the one that's into the. Oh, no, I won't give away what I think he's going to say, but I don't think it really matters. I don't think there is a window like 90 minutes after you've done intense exercise that you have to have X amount of protein personally. But I do think over a 24-hour period, you do need to have enough protein, definitely, and enough fats, and not undereat. So, and unless you're going through a fast where you can still exercise when you're fasting. So anyway, go on, Richard.
100%. Look, the anabolic window is a myth. You don't need to consume straight after training. You can do if you like, but I prefer to, if you're doing resistance training or max intensity sprints, which are fantastic, by the way, I would opt to consume, because you've activated mTOR activation, which is the anabolic pathway. This is, you know, the signal to grow, which is fantastic. This will typically last under normal circumstances from exercise 3.5 to 4 hours, and then we can elicit another response by a meal, high protein meal, by the way, with lots of fat, not carbohydrate, because the carbohydrate and the proteins will elicit an mTOR activation via 2 different pathways. We don't want to activate it via insulin. We want to activate it via, well, directly via the protein, leucine in particular. Now, this will activate mTOR, and then we can reactivate it again and again. And we can do this 4 times maximum throughout the day. And this is going to give us the best ability to heal, build, repair, and grow. But the anabolic window is a myth, as long as we are consuming, as you say, over a set period of time, adequate protein to heal, build, repair, and grow. That is a myth. Sprints, what I would say is, if you are new to running, I wouldn't start with sprints. Sprints are fantastic. They're high explosive, and they are a brilliant addition to a workout. But if you're not used to sprinting, you will likely injure. So I would start by doing some jogging first, and just getting into the habit of building up your speed when it comes to sprinting. As you know, I've recently, or over the last couple of years, gone into running and cycling, and I think there's a benefit to a degree, but prolonged long distance running, I think, is detrimental. It led to weight gain around the midsection, and I think this is because I caused damage to my HPA axis, which is how we produce cortisols via the adrenals. I've recently started, now this is really interesting, I've recently started resistance training. So I've reduced the running. I did an hour on the indoor bike today, which you know, I haven't been doing an awful lot of, but I've had 4 sessions back now on resistance training, and I've reduced the running to shorter runs, and my midsection has leaned right up. Like, I've got abs again. Like, before they were washed out, and now, like, the abs are, like, you know, the abs are there. And I haven't changed anything. All I've done is reduce the running and gone back to resistance training, which is incredible. So sprints, fantastic, but as I say, I would suggest that you ease into this and be careful, because the last thing you want to do is injure. When it comes to sprinting, you want to build things 10%. Now, this is an important rule. So begin your journey, and then, you know, increase your efforts 10%, whether it's time or distance, and so on and so forth. Don't go beyond this, because you will cause damage, you will injure, and you will put yourself out of action for a long time. Other things that can mimic a sprint, you can do something high intensity on the rowing machine, on the ski erg, on the, what else is there? Rowing, ski erg, the indoor bike, you know, all of these are fantastic. You can go balls to the wall, you know, on these, Yeah, one of those episodes tonight, isn't it? You can go all out on those and not cause damage, and the benefit, I think, is incredible. So you don't have to sprint. You can do it, in the comfort of the gym. But yeah, sprinting, if you can do it, is fantastic.
Yeah, I like those sort of phrases, like when you're squatting, ask for the grass and all that. It's not really swearing, is it? Right, we get away with it. Well, I'm going to jump in with a super chat from Beef to Be Fit to Be Fit, which is very good play on words, and also a broader question someone asks as well about. So I'm going to ask you two questions, Rich. One is on the super chat and one is on a general thing, which we might be able to nail that bit first. Somebody is worried about electrolytes. Taking them means you're not being strict carnivore, but you've got to remember, this is my 2 pence. Water isn't carnivore. Salt isn't carnivore. You really got to stop worrying, because you do need water. You need minerals. All right. So don't get into the sort of zero tolerance. It's not carnivore stuff, because those two things, which are a big part of the lion diet, are not really strictly carnivore. I mean, water doesn't have any appearance, neither does salt. All right. So I won't worry too much, but that's my 2 pence. So that's the first thing, Rich, on that. Do you think it's okay, strict carnivore, to have electrolytes? And secondly, what type of combinations of MCT is best?
Brilliant. Look, I use electrolytes. Now, people can say, well, that's not carnivore. But look, the water we drink today isn't the type of water that it once was. The water's been, it's no longer full of the vitamins and minerals that it once was. It doesn't contain the electrolytes. The meats that we eat today are devoid of these essential nutrients that once were. So all we're doing is, and these have been ruined through industry and pollution and so on and so forth. So all we are doing is obtaining, and you can obtain all of the electrolytes you need from diet, by the way. If you eat enough animal proteins, you will obtain enough potassium, sodium, magnesium, and calcium without question. But what we do today is very much outside of the box from an ancestral perspective. So we would have woken up and we would have gone hunting, caught our animal, we would have taken it back and cut it up and eaten it, and brilliant, fantastic. The stress in our evolutionary period is very different from today. Our stress would have been survival, and that's it. Where's the next meal coming from? But now the stresses in modern life are rampant. And stress does use electrolytes, by the way, because potassium is heavily used in the brain. And when you are stressed, your requirement for these electrolytes does increase. Now, we don't live an evolutionary appropriate diet. We don't live in caves. We don't go hunting. But we do have a whole host of stress from kids, from taking them to school. I've mentioned that story before with I wake up in the morning, I'm pulling my hair out trying to get my little girl to get dressed quick enough, looking at the time, stressing. She's shouting and screaming at me, and then sort of putting her in the car, stressing because I'm a minute late leaving, which means I'm going to be exponentially late getting to the school. And then I'm stressing about getting to the school gate because now the gate's closed and I've got to ring the buzzer, and the teacher comes out and gives me a nasty look, which makes me late then getting back into the traffic, driving to work. And now I'm going to be late for consultations and meetings. So I've started my day as a whole stress ball, so these things that we see today, work-life stress, relationship stresses, these are things that we wouldn't have been suffering with, in my opinion, as much as we do in modern living. And we're trying to deal with the lack of electrolytes in these foods and the water that we consume. So yes, supplement if you can, or if you need to. If you don't, if you have a sedentary life, and you are the type of person who deals with stress very well, then maybe you don't have a requirement. Now that's one aspect. Now the second thing is that many of us are coming from being damaged. We weren't damaged when we were evolving. We were born, we've evolved, we've grown up, and we are thriving. Many of us have been damaged by the things that we've consumed, the toxins that we consumed. Modern diet is full of toxins which have ripped us and shred, and stripped us of these essential nutrients. They've made us insulin resistant and damaged our gut and damaged our body as a whole. So many of us coming into this way of living need a helping hand in order to heal and repair. And this process has taken a lifetime to occur. It's not going to happen just by eating meat overnight. There is a series of incremental changes in towards this journey of repair and recovery. And maybe you require some salt or some electrolytes in order to help just regulate and process these systems as you adapt. You know, so yes, I'm a big fan. Anthony Chaffee doesn't use electrolytes. Sean Baker does. You know, but Anthony Chaffee, by his own account, doesn't train as much as he used to. Sean Baker does. My life is stressful. I'm in front of a screen all day, and my requirement for potassium is incredibly high. I work out regularly, so my requirement for electrolytes is there. Someone else's may not be, you know, so it's very much an individual thing. We can go on and on with this, but you know, look, I regard myself as one of the strictest carnivores on the planet, and I use electrolytes. You don't need to put in. I do an unflavored version, with no nasties. There's no, you know, there's no plant compounds in there. I do the flavored version for the masses because these are the people who are gravitating in. But my unflavored version, you know, that is pure carnivore. This is the creme de la creme, and it's a special formulation basically, which I own the rights to. I've created. Nobody else can copy and replicate. So that's that. And in regards to the combination of MCTs, look, the best MCT without question is C8. MCT, for those who don't know, is a medium chain triglyceride. It's a type of fat. When we consume meat from or fat from animal proteins, these are long chain fatty acids. What that means is that they have a longer carbon chain, and these work very differently in the body. These will go through the digestive system. They'll be bound to chylomicrons through the small intestine and transported through the lymphatic system before finally arriving at the liver, where some may be converted into energy and some may be stored. You know, if we're ketogenic, some may go through HMG-CoA and create ketones, and some may be stored. MCT is less likely to be stored. Now, there are technically three types, C8, C10, and C12, although in my opinion, C12 is not an MCT because at least half or around half of the C12 actually acts like a long chain fatty acid. So I don't count C12 as a medium chain triglyceride, and even some of the C10 can do this also. But C10 and C8 are going to be better. C8, because it has a shorter chain, is quicker to react. This does not go through the lymphatic system and is sent direct to the liver via the hepatic portal vein, where it's almost instantly converted into ketones, whether you are ketogenic or not. So what this means is a person taking C8 MCT can benefit from the production of ketones and all of the positive things of living a ketogenic lifestyle, just a lot less. Obviously, living the lifestyle while consuming is going to be a lot better because now we're negating the toxins that we're putting in with the C8 and so on and so forth. But C8 can be beneficial to people who suffer with insulin resistance, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and so on and so forth, because ketones will
to interrupt. But I just, Ribeye Rob has just asked on the back of what you're saying, and we have quite a few super chats to get to before 8 o'clock. Can I mix C8? Can I mix some C8 powder in with the raspberry bomb? Also loving the mental clarity from the bomb.
The bomb is the bomb. Yes, 100%. I would recommend mixing the C8 with the raspberry bomb for a more synergistic effect, in simple terms, Rob. Yes, go for it.
Okay, let's shout out. Yeah, brilliant. Healthy Holly, $4.99 super sticker. Thank you so much. So we got three more. Well, we got four, but Jonathan's just saying we're looking handsome, apparently. So Jonathan should have gone at Specsavers. Right, here we go then. DMT, strict carnivore, 2.5 years, triglycerides 93, HbA1c 5.8, HDL 61, fasting glucose 95. Fasting insulin 19. I think I may be one of those people who easily converts excess protein to sugar. 59 and female. Well, I'd really need to know what you're eating. I would be guessing that possibly you're either overeating or maybe there's some dairy there, because that might be causing some of the numbers there. I think the fasting insulin is one of those things that I definitely hate talking about normal ranges. But 2.5 years carnivore, you would expect it to be lower. So there may be some stress going on. We don't know. If there might be some other things like coffee that could be causing a problem. But we've debunked this thing about excess protein becoming sugar. That is very unlikely to actually happen. Very, very unlikely. So I can't really add too much to that. What would you say, Rich?
Yeah, look, it's an awkward one. I always feel bad for questions like this because we do need a lot more information. You know, it's I'd suggest maybe jumping on a call in the school group or booking Stephen or myself for a consultation, because we would need considerably more information to get into you know, the HbA1c. I'm not overly concerned. You know, we do see this over many years. I would like to see the HDL higher and the tris lower, but look, it's these things, anything could have been caused the increase in triglycerides. Lots of things, you know, what you did that morning, how stressed you were, and so on and so forth. Coffee, a big contributor, as you say, but there's so many other questions that I think, you know, we'd need to get into in order to give an accurate answer with that.
Yeah, okay. So our consult would be good, or joining school, which would be a more cost-effective way of getting some one-to-one attention. And Andrea, I'm going to say that to you as well, because I know you're a member of school. Please share your thoughts on the benefits of high protein versus protein restriction to spike FGF21, referencing Stephen's Substack in response to the ridiculous sugar diet. Thank you. See, the thing is, right, if something works, you have to define works. So there used to be a diet, and this is absolutely true, and I'm going to do this at some point. There was a tapeworm diet, which made you lose weight. That's a real thing. There was a doctor recommended a cigarette diet where smoking was the thing to lose weight, and it worked because you lost weight. But both of those things are not great for your health. FGF1, how does that work? Well, yes, I did a Substack on it. If you increase FGF1, which you can do via protein restriction, with loads and loads of sugar, or you can do it with very high fat and very little carbohydrate, what actually happens is it tanks your mitochondrial function at the electron transport chain. So what happens is you produce more proteins in the complex 1, 3, and 4, not on the ATP synthase where you should be making energy. So you waste energy. You burn a lot of energy, and that results in your body burning up extra fat. So that's it. It's not a great thing, but we'll talk about it more in school, I think, Rich, if that's okay, because I want to get John's one in for you, which is 20 euros. Oh, by the way, Herbert, thank you very much. That's 10 euros. Herbert, great fan of yours. I am, because you're such a good supporter of us. It's really nice. I'm sure we'll see you in school later, I think. But John has asked, this is the last one we can get to. I changed my diet to high fat, high protein in the morning and low fat, moderate carb, high protein in the evening, taking the Randall cycle into consideration. Now I've noticed my heart rate variability doubled since doing this. Any idea why? Was carny before?
Changed my diet to high fat, high protein in the morning, low fat, moderate carb. John, it'd be interesting to see, noticed HRV doubled, was carny. Yeah, how long were you carny previous to this? You know, is what I would, I'd pop into that. Heart rate variability, you could have, so HRV is heart rate variability, a fantastic tool to measure for health and well-being and athletic performance, which is probably why John, I'm guessing, is using that. I do notice that if, you know, when I was bodybuilding, for example, you know, if I threw the odd carb meal in now and again, that does seem to reset many systems and pathways in the body, and it can help fuel some form of fat loss. But I tend to favor the higher protein to elicit that response over carb. But it's an interesting one. You know, John, I think is John in the school group?
The name rings a bell. I think he's asked a lot of questions before. He may be in the school group.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one to get into, to get some background in regards to this. But what I would say is that if you are consuming carb, you're doing the correct thing. You know, we don't want to consume carbohydrate, which is sugar, with the fat. So you are doing the right thing. And we see bodybuilders and professional athletes who do this for their entire career, and they do very well off it for a prolonged period of time. But in the end, I mean, if we look at a professional bodybuilder, for example, the average age of a professional bodybuilder in America is around 15 years lower than the average American, which is, you know, lower generally anyway. So it's what we need to remember with the carb is that we're always going to cause activation of NFKB, and we're going to cause activation of the NOx pathway, which is going to lead to glycation and oxidative stress eventually. So even though they're not things that we see in the short term, there are things that are going on under the hood. You know, so that's what always is at the back of my mind when I think of putting carb back in, is what damage is being caused that I can't see, you know?
Yeah, brilliant, Richard. Sorry to rush you. I know you hate it, but the super chats are really important to us as a group. So we do need to acknowledge them and answer them. So YouTubers, if you want to join us on School, I have put a link in the chat. It'd be nice to see you over there. We always get a few people coming over. We'll be over there in about a minute, 2 minutes, and we'll be answering questions. Sorry if we didn't get to your question tonight, which is why we started the School community on a Sunday night. We do about a half an hour, 45 minutes. And then we've got a Monday where we do an hour, and I'm also doing a Wednesday. So anyway, Jonathan, thank you so much for your support. I will check out your email and invite. And I will hopefully see you in the School group, Richard, and anyone else who's joining. Right. Thank you, YouTubers. If you're not going to join us, we'll see you next week.
Thank you all. Some brilliant questions.